Have you ever received a phone call that shattered your world and set you on a path you never imagined? That's what happened to me, and trust me, the twists will keep you on the edge of your seat. If you're enjoying this story, hit that subscribe button right now and drop a comment below. Tell me which country you're listening from and if you've ever had a family secret blow up in your face like this. Your stories keep me going. Now, let's dive into part 1 of Shadows of Betrayal. My name is Eleanor Hayes, and I've always prided myself on being the steady one in the family, the one who built a life far from the small-town whispers of Willow Creek, Oregon. At 45, I had a thriving career as a real estate consultant in Seattle, a cozy apartment overlooking the Puget Sound, and a circle of friends who felt more like family than my actual blood relatives ever did. But blood has a way of pulling you back, doesn't it? Especially when it comes with a warning that sounds like something out of a thriller novel. It was a crisp autumn evening in October when my phone rang. I was in the middle of reviewing listings for a high-end client, my laptop screen glowing in the dim light of my living room. The caller ID showed Mom, and I smiled as I picked up. My parents, Harold and Marjorie Hayes, were in their late 70s now, still living in the old Victorian house on Maple Street where my sister Lydia and I grew up. We weren't the closest family, but we checked in regularly. Holidays, birthdays, the occasional video call. "Eleanor, honey," my mother's voice trembled on the line, lacking its usual warmth. "We need to talk." I sat up straighter, sensing the urgency. "Mom, is everything okay? Is Dad all right?" There was a pause, and I could hear my father muttering in the background. Then Mom spoke again, her words hitting me like a cold wind. "Don't come home, Eleanor. Your sister, Lydia, doesn't want you here. She doesn't want to see you at all." I blinked, my mind racing to process what I'd just heard. "What? Mom, that doesn't make sense. Why would Lydia say that? We haven't spoken in a few months, but there's no bad blood between us. Is this about the last family gathering? I thought we patched things up." Another hesitation, longer this time. Dad's voice came on the line, gruff and apologetic. "Allie, it's complicated. Lydia's going through something, and she made it clear. She doesn't want you around. We're sorry, but please, just stay in Seattle for now." I pressed them for details, my heart pounding. Going through what? Is she sick? In trouble? You can't just drop this on me without explaining. But they evaded, repeating the same vague lines about giving Lydia space and how it was for the best. The call ended abruptly, leaving me staring at my phone in disbelief. My sister and I had always been different. Lydia, 2 years younger, was the free spirit, the one who chased dreams while I focused on stability. She'd stayed in Willow Creek, married her high school sweetheart Tom, and started a small bakery that became the town's favorite spot for fresh pies and gossip. I visited a couple of times a year, and though we weren't inseparable, there was no outright feud, or so I thought. That night, sleep evaded me. I paced my apartment, replaying old memories. Lydia and I as kids, sharing secrets under the covers. The time she borrowed my favorite dress for prom and returned it with a coffee stain, laughing it off. Our parents' 50th anniversary party last year, where we toasted to family unity. What could have changed? The more I thought, the angrier I got. This wasn't just rejection, it felt like exile from my own roots. The next morning, I decided I couldn't let it slide. I called Lydia directly, but it went straight to voicemail. "Lyd, it's me. Mom and Dad just told me not to come home because of you. What on earth is going on? Call me back. We need to talk." No response. Hours turned into a day, then 2. I tried texting, emailing, even reached out to Tom, but his phone was off. Frustration bubbled into determination. If they wouldn't tell me, I'd find out myself. I booked a flight to Portland, rented a car, and drove the 3 hours to Willow Creek under a gray sky that matched my mood. As I pulled into town, nostalgia hit hard. The main street with its quaint shops, the old clock tower chiming noon, the bakery, Lydia's place, with its cheerful sign swinging in the breeze. I parked across the street and watched. Customers came and went, but no sign of Lydia. Taking a deep breath, I crossed over and pushed open the door, the bell jingling like a warning. Behind the counter was Mrs. Ellis, the elderly helper who'd been there since the bakery opened. Her eyes widened when she saw me. "Eleanor, oh dear, what are you doing here?" "I need to see Lydia," I said firmly, scanning the back room. "Is she in?" Mrs. Ellis fidgeted with a towel, avoiding my gaze. "She's not here right now. Maybe you should come back later." "Later when? This is important. Family business." She glanced toward the door as if expecting someone. "Eleanor, please, it's not a good time. Lydia's been under a lot of stress." Stress? That word again. I leaned in, lowering my voice. "What kind of stress? Tell me, Mrs. Ellis. I've driven all this way because my own parents told me not to come home." Her face paled, and she whispered, "It's about the inheritance, dear. Your grandmother's estate. Lydia, she handled the paperwork after your grandma passed last spring. There were complications." My grandmother, Evelyn Hayes, had died 6 months ago at 92, leaving behind a modest fortune from her late husband's investments, enough to change lives in a small town. I'd been too busy with work to get involved, trusting Lydia and our parents to sort it out. Complications? What do you mean? Before she could answer, the back door swung open, and there was Lydia, flour-dusted apron, hair tied back, looking every bit the successful businesswoman. But her expression turned to stone when she saw me. "Eleanor, what are you doing here?" "I came to talk," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mom and Dad called and said—" "Get out," she interrupted, her eyes flashing with anger I'd never seen before. "You weren't supposed to come. I told them to keep you away." "Why? We're sisters, Lydia. Whatever this is, we can fix it." She crossed her arms, her voice cold. "There's nothing to fix because there's nothing left for you here. Go back to Seattle and your perfect life." The customers in the bakery fell silent, pretending not to listen. I felt heat rise in my cheeks. "This is about Grandma's money, isn't it? Mrs. Ellis mentioned complications." Lydia shot a glare at Mrs. Ellis, who shrank back. "You have no idea what you're talking about. Leave now or I'll call the sheriff." The threat stung like a slap. I turned and walked out, the bell mocking me as I left. Back in my car, I drove to our parents' house, my mind swirling with questions. Why the hostility? What had Lydia done? Pulling up to the familiar porch, I knocked, but no one answered. The curtains twitched. Someone was home. "Mom? Dad? It's me." After a minute, the door cracked open, Dad's face peering out. "Ellie, you shouldn't have come. We told you." "I deserve answers," I insisted. "Let me in." Reluctantly, he stepped aside. Mom was in the living room, wringing her hands. "Oh, Eleanor, this is a mess." We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where we'd shared countless meals. I demanded the truth. What's going on with Lydia and Grandma's inheritance? They exchanged glances. Mom sighed. "Your grandmother's will, it left everything to be split equally between you and Lydia, but Lydia convinced us to let her manage it. She said you'd be too busy and she could invest it wisely for all of us." Dad nodded. "We trusted her, but then things went wrong. She used the money to expand the bakery, buy new equipment, even renovate the house attached to it. Said it was a loan she'd pay back." "A loan? From my share too?" My stomach dropped. Mom's eyes filled with tears. "We didn't know until it was too late. She forged some documents, made it look like you agreed to defer your portion. When we confronted her, she threatened to cut us off, said we'd lose the house if we pushed it." Forgery? Threats? This wasn't the sister I knew. Why didn't you tell me sooner? "We were ashamed," Dad admitted, "and Lydia swore she'd make it right eventually. But now, she's in deep. Creditors are calling, and she's blaming you for not being around to help." Blaming me? The audacity fueled a fire in me. I spent the afternoon poring over the documents they showed me, bank statements, the will, scribbled notes. It was clear Lydia had siphoned my half, over $150,000, into her business without consent, and now, with the bakery thriving on stolen funds, she wanted me gone to avoid accountability. As evening fell, I checked into the local inn, my mind plotting. This wasn't just betrayal, it was theft.
But confronting her directly had failed. I needed a smarter approach, something that would expose her without destroying our parents. Little did I know, digging deeper would uncover secrets far darker than money, secrets that would lead to a revenge I never thought myself capable of.
The next morning, I checked out of the Willow Creek Inn before sunrise, making sure the front desk clerk saw me load my suitcase into the rental car. I wanted everyone to think I was leaving town for good. I drove straight to the highway, but instead of heading toward Portland, I turned off at the first rest area, parked behind a row of trucks, and waited. After an hour, when I was certain no one had followed, I turned back toward town on a back road that wound through pine forests and avoided the main streets. I needed a place to stay hidden. The old fishing cabin on Willow Lake belonged to a childhood friend, Sarah Klein, who now lived in Boise. We'd stayed in touch over the years, and when I texted her late last night explaining I needed a quiet spot for a few days without questions, she sent the key code for the lockbox without hesitation. Use it as long as you need, Ellie. Doors always open for you. The cabin was small, one bedroom with a wood stove, a tiny kitchen, and a porch overlooking the water. No Wi-Fi, spotty cell service, perfect for disappearing while I thought. I unpacked the few things I'd bought at a big box store on the way, a prepaid phone, a notebook, some groceries, and a cheap digital camera. If I was going to uncover the full truth, I needed proof, not just accusations. My first target was the bakery's financial trail. Lydia had always been careless with paperwork. Growing up, her room looked like a paper tornado had hit it. If she was hiding something bigger than the inheritance money, there might be traces somewhere. But storming back into the bakery wasn't an option. I needed an inside view. That's when I remembered old Mr. Whitaker, the retired accountant who'd done taxes for half the town for 40 years. He still lived in the little yellow house 2 blocks from the square, and rumor had it he kept helping people informally even after retiring. I waited until mid-afternoon, then walked the back trails to his street, hood up against the drizzle. Mr. Whitaker answered the door in his cardigan and slippers, squinting through thick glasses. "Eleanor Hayes? Well, I'll be. Haven't seen you since your grandma's service. Come in, come in." Over tea at his cluttered kitchen table, I explained everything, carefully, without naming Lydia outright at first. I showed him copies of the documents my parents had given me, the will, bank transfers, the forged signature that supposedly was mine agreeing to defer my share. He adjusted his glasses and studied the pages for a long time. "This signature, it's not terrible, but it's not yours either. See the loop on the Y in Hayes? You always made it tall and straight. This one's short and curled. Amateur work." My pulse quickened. "Can you tell where the money went exactly, beyond the obvious bakery upgrades?" He tapped a pen against his chin. "Public records are your friend here. County clerk's office has building permits, business license updates, but for the deeper stuff, vendor payments, loan applications, you'd need bank statements or someone who knows the vendors." He paused, then lowered his voice. "I do taxes for the supplier who delivers flour and sugar to Lydia's place. Name's Hank Rollins. Good man. If you ask nice, he might share what he's seen. But be careful, Eleanor. Small towns talk." I thanked him and left with a list of dates and names he'd jotted down. That evening, using the prepaid phone, I called Hank Rollins and introduced myself as a potential investor interested in local businesses. He agreed to meet at the diner on the edge of town the next morning. Hank was a big man in his 60s, plaid shirt stretched over his belly, hands rough for years of loading sacks. We sat in a corner booth. After some small talk about the economy, I steered the conversation. "I've heard Lydia's place is expanding fast. Impressive growth. Must be ordering a lot from you." Hank nodded slowly. "Yeah, orders tripled last year. New ovens, bigger display cases, even started a wholesale side to restaurants in Bend and Eugene. Paid cash for a lot of it, too. Unusual these days." "Cash?" I kept my tone neutral. "Big stacks. Said it was from private investors.
But, between you and me, she started asking for credit extensions about 4 months ago, said cash flow was tight. I gave her 30 days, but she's already past due on the last 2 deliveries. I pressed gently. Any idea why this sudden change? Hank shrugged. Heard whispers. Some folks say she's got gambling trouble. Others think it's medical bills. Tom's been looking thinner lately and he misses shifts at the mill. But I don't know for sure. Just that the money's drying up fast. Gambling? Medical? The possibilities spun in my head. I thanked Hank, paid for his coffee, and drove back to the cabin deep in thought. Lydia had always loved the thrill of a card game at family gatherings, poker with pennies, but nothing serious. If it had escalated, that could explain the rapid spending. Or maybe it was Tom. Either way, the inheritance money was gone, and she was scrambling. That night, I couldn't sleep. The lake wind rattled the windows, and my mind kept returning to one question. Why push me away so violently instead of asking for help? Pride? Fear? Or was there something she didn't want me to find? The answer came the following afternoon. I decided to watch the bakery from a distance. I parked on a side street with a clear view of the back alley and used the digital camera with the zoom lens. Around 3 o'clock, a black SUV pulled up. A man in a dark jacket stepped out, mid-40s, slicked hair, expensive watch. He didn't go through the front. He knocked on the back door and Lydia let him in quickly, looking over her shoulder. They were inside for 20 minutes. When he left, he carried a thick manila envelope. Lydia stood in the doorway watching him drive away, her face pale. I snapped photos of the license plate, the envelope exchange, the man's face. My hands shook as I lowered the camera. This wasn't just poor business decisions. This looked like payments to someone she owed, someone who made house calls. Back at the cabin, I used the spotty cell signal to run the plate through a free public lookup site on my phone. The vehicle was registered to a company called Cascade Collections LLC in Portland. A quick search showed it was a debt recovery firm, polite term for debt collectors who weren't always polite. Lydia wasn't just in financial trouble, she was in deep with people who didn't forgive debts easily. I sat on the porch as the sun set, the lake wind rattled the windows, and my mind kept returning to one question. Why push me away so violently instead of asking for help? Pride? Fear? Or was there something she didn't want me to find? The answer came the following afternoon. I decided to watch the bakery from a distance. I parked on a side street with a clear view of the back alley and used the digital camera with the zoom lens. Around 3 o'clock, a black SUV pulled up. A man in a dark jacket stepped out, mid-40s, slicked hair, expensive watch. He didn't go through the front. He knocked on the back door and Lydia let him in quickly, looking over her shoulder. They were inside for 20 minutes. When he left, he carried a thick manila envelope. Lydia stood in the doorway watching him drive away, her face pale. I snapped photos of the license plate, the envelope exchange, the man's face. My hands shook as I lowered the camera. This wasn't just poor business decisions. This looked like payments to someone she owed, someone who made house calls. Back at the cabin, I used the spotty cell signal to run the plate through a free public lookup site on my phone. The vehicle was registered to a company called Cascade Collections LLC in Portland. A quick search showed it was a debt recovery firm, polite term for debt collectors who weren't always polite. Lydia wasn't just in financial trouble, she was in deep with people who didn't forgive debts easily. I sat on the porch as the sun set, the lake wind roused the windows, and my mind kept returning to one question. Why push me away so violently instead of asking for help? Pride? Fear? Or was there something she didn't want me to find? The answer came the following afternoon. I decided to watch the bakery from a distance. I parked on a side street with a clear view of the back alley and used the digital camera with the zoom lens. Around 3 o'clock, a black SUV pulled up. A man in a dark jacket stepped out, mid-40s, slicked hair, expensive watch. He didn't go through the front. He knocked on the back door and Lydia let him in quickly, looking over her shoulder. They were inside for 20 minutes. When he left, he carried a thick manila envelope. Lydia stood in the doorway watching him drive away, her face pale. I snapped photos of the license plate, the envelope exchange, the man's face. My hands shook as I lowered the camera. This wasn't just poor business decisions. This looked like payments to someone she owed, someone who made house calls. Back at the cabin, I used the spotty cell signal to run the plate through a free public lookup site on my phone. The vehicle was registered to a company called Cascade Collections LLC in Portland. A quick search showed it was a debt recovery firm, polite term for debt collectors who weren't always polite. Lydia wasn't just in financial trouble, she was in deep with people who didn't forgive debts easily. I sat on the porch as the sun set, the lake wind rattled the windows, and my mind kept returning to one question. Why push me away so violently instead of asking for help? Pride? Fear? Or was there something she didn't want me to find? The answer came the following afternoon. I decided to watch the bakery from a distance. I parked on a side street with a clear view of the back alley and used the digital camera with the zoom lens. Around
Lydia stood frozen under the old oak tree, the moonlight carving shadows across her face. The printed photo trembled slightly in my fingers, the image of the man in the dark jacket accepting the envelope from her back door. She didn't try to deny it. She didn't even speak at first. She just stared at the picture like it was a death sentence. "How long have you been watching me?" she finally asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Long enough to know you're not just spending Grandma's money on ovens and renovations," I said. "You're paying someone who scares you. Who is he, Lydia, and how much do you owe?" She looked away, toward the dark water of the lake. For a second, I thought she might run. Instead, she sank down onto the fallen log we used to sit on as teenagers, elbows on knees, face in hands. "It started small," she said. "A few trips to the casino in Portland. Tom and we were having trouble. The mill cut his hours. Medical tests kept coming back inconclusive but expensive. I thought if I won big once, just once, I could fix everything. Pay off the house, help Mom and Dad, even send you something nice for once." I stayed silent, letting her words fill the night air. "The wins came at first, then they stopped, but the habit didn't. I borrowed from the business account to chase the losses. When that ran dry, I looked at Grandma's estate. You were never here, Eleanor. You had your big city life. I told myself you wouldn't miss it right away. I told myself I'd pay it back before anyone noticed." "Except you didn't," I said flatly. "You forged my name. You lied to Mom and Dad, and when they finally confronted you, you threatened them." She lifted her head, eyes glistening. "I was terrified. The people I owed, they're not patient. They started coming to the bakery, to the house. One night they waited in the alley until Tom left for his shift. They said if I didn't start paying regularly, they'd make sure the bakery had an accident, or worse." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. "And instead of coming to me or anyone, you decided the best plan was to banish me from town?" "You would have taken everything," she snapped, the old anger flaring. "You would have sued, called the police, ruined me in front of the whole town. I couldn't let that happen, not when I was so close to turning it around." "Close?" I almost laughed. "Hank Rollins says you're behind on deliveries. Creditors are circling. You're not turning anything around. You're sinking faster." She wiped her eyes roughly. "I had a plan. There's a developer from Bend who wants to buy the lot behind the bakery. Big money, enough to clear everything. I just needed a few more months." I crouched in front of her so our eyes were level. "Lydia, look at me. That developer isn't coming. I checked the county records yesterday. The zoning change he needs was denied 2 weeks ago, permanently." Her face crumpled.
For the first time since we were children, I saw my little sister, not the defiant business owner, not the angry woman who told me to leave, but the scared girl who used to hide under my bed during thunderstorms. "I don't know what to do anymore," she whispered. Part of me wanted to walk away right then, let her drown in the mess she made, but another part, the part that still remembered her teaching me how to ride a bike, the part that cried with her when our dog died, wouldn't let me. "I'm not going to destroy you," I said slowly, "but I'm also not going to let you keep lying. Here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow morning, you're going to sit down with Mom, Dad, and me. You're going to tell them everything, every dollar, every lie, every threat. No more secrets." She shook her head. "They'll hate me." "They already know pieces. They're ashamed and scared, but they love you, and they deserve the full truth before the collectors come knocking on their door, too." She was quiet for a long time. Then, in a small voice, "What about you? What do you want?" I stood up, brushing dirt from my jeans. "I want my share of Grandma's money returned, or at least accounted for. I want an apology that means something, and I want you to get help, real help. Not another gamble, not another scheme. Counseling, debt management, whatever it takes." She nodded slowly, like the weight of it was finally pressing down. "I'll do it, all of it." Mom looked at me. "And you, Eleanor, are you okay with this?" "I'm not okay yet," I admitted, "but I'm willing to try. Family doesn't mean perfect. It means showing up even when it hurts." We spent the rest of the morning making phone calls. A lawyer friend of Mr. Whitaker agreed to meet us the next day. A counselor in Bend had an opening the following week. Step by step, the plan took shape. But just when I thought the worst was behind us, the doorbell rang. Dad went to answer it. When he returned, his face was ashen. "It's them," he said quietly. "The collectors. They're here. And they brought paperwork saying the bakery is collateral for a loan Lydia never told us about." Lydia's eyes went wide with fresh panic. I stood up slowly. This wasn't over. Not even close. Because the man standing on the porch wasn't just a debt collector. It was the same man from the photo. And he wasn't alone.
The man on the porch wore the same dark jacket from the photo, but up close he looked even more imposing. Broad shoulders, close-cropped hair going gray at the temples, eyes that scanned the room like he was already calculating assets. Behind him stood a second man, younger, thinner, arms crossed, wearing a cheap suit that didn't quite fit. They didn't look like movie mobsters, but they didn't need to. The quiet confidence in their posture said enough. Dad stood blocking the doorway, voice steady despite the tremor I could see in his hands. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" The older man smiled, small, polite, cold. "Mr. Hayes, we're with Cascade Collections. We're here to speak with Lydia Hayes regarding an outstanding obligation secured against Lydia's Place Bakery and adjacent property." Lydia had gone white. She rose from the table slowly, like moving through water. "I told you I'm making payments. The last envelope was delivered 3 days ago." The man, his name tag read R. Donovan, tilted his head. "The payment was short, and interest compounds daily. We're here to discuss accelerated repayment or alternative arrangements." I stepped forward before anyone could stop me. "Alternative arrangements? You mean threats? Because if that's the case, we can have this conversation with the sheriff present." Donovan's smile didn't waver. "We're a licensed recovery firm, ma'am. Everything we do is within the law. We simply present options. Foreclosure on the collateral is one. Voluntary surrender of assets is another. Or perhaps a lump sum settlement to avoid further escalation." Mom gasped softly. Dad's jaw tightened. Lydia's voice cracked. "I don't have a lump sum. You know that." "Then we'll need to proceed with the next steps," Donovan said smoothly. He reached into his jacket and produced a thick envelope. This is formal notice of intent to foreclose on the commercial property known as Lydia's Place, effective in 30 days unless the full balance, $1,087,472.76, is satisfied. He extended the envelope towards Lydia. She stared at it like it might bite. I took it instead. "We'll review this with our attorney. You'll be hearing from him." Donovan raised an eyebrow. "You have counsel?" "We do now." The younger man shifted, but Donovan raised a hand to quiet him. "Very well, 30 days. Clock starts today." He nodded once, almost courteously, and the two men turned and walked back to their black SUV. The door closed. Silence swallowed the room. Lydia sank back into her chair, covering her face. "It's over. They're going to take the bakery. Everything." "Not if we fight. We have 30 days. That's enough time to get organized." Dad looked at me. "Ellie, do we even have a chance?" I opened the envelope and scanned the pages, legalese, numbers, dates, but one line jumped out. The original loan agreement was dated 18 months ago, 6 months before Grandma passed, and the co-signer listed wasn't just Lydia, it was Tom. "Where's Tom?" I asked suddenly. Lydia looked up, confused. "At work, why?" "Because his name is on this loan too. He co-signed. Did he know about all of this?" She hesitated. Too long. "Lydia," Mom said quietly, "did Tom know?" Lydia swallowed. He knew about the gambling at first. He tried to stop me, but when the debts got bigger, he agreed to co-sign so we could get a lower interest rate. He thought it was a business loan for expansion. I told him we'd pay it back fast." Dad's voice was low. "You lied to your husband, too?" "I was protecting him," she whispered. "He's already stressed about his health. The tests, they're looking at his heart now. I didn't want him worrying." I felt something shift inside me, anger giving way to something heavier, pity maybe, or exhaustion. "We need Tom here, now." Lydia pulled out her phone with shaking fingers and texted him. 20 minutes later, Tom walked through the door, tall, quiet, looking even thinner than I remembered, dark circles under his eyes. He saw all of us sitting there and froze. "What's going on?" Lydia stood up. "They came, the collectors. They're foreclosing in 30 days. Tom's face didn't change much. He just nodded slowly, like he'd been expecting it. I figured. "You knew?" Dad asked. Tom looked at Lydia, then at the floor. "I knew we were behind. I didn't know how far, not until last week when one of them showed up at the mill asking questions." Lydia started crying again. "I'm sorry, Tom. I'm so sorry." He didn't move to comfort her. He just stood there. "I co-signed because I love you. I thought if I helped, we could get through it. But you kept going back. Every time you promised it was the last time." The room felt too small for all the pain in it. I cleared my throat. "We have 30 days. We need to decide what we're fighting for. The bakery, the house, or just enough time to sell what we can and pay what we owe." Tom finally spoke. "I don't care about the bakery anymore. I care about keeping Mom and Dad in their home, and I care about Lydia getting real help before this kills one of us." Lydia looked at him like she was seeing him for the first time. "You'd walk away from everything we built?" "I already did," he said quietly, "the day I realized the woman I married was choosing cards over our marriage." No one spoke after that. We spent the afternoon on the phone again. The lawyer, Mr. Whitaker's friend, Paul Grayson, came over that evening. We laid everything out: the forged documents, the misuse of inheritance funds, the gambling debt, the loan, the foreclosure notice. Paul listened without interrupting, then leaned back. "You've got a few paths. 1, bankruptcy protection for Lydia and Tom. It would halt the foreclosure temporarily and give breathing room to restructure. 2, negotiate a settlement with Cascade. They might accept less if they think litigation would cost them more. 3, sue Lydia civilly for the inheritance fraud. But that would drag the whole family through court and probably destroy any chance of reconciliation." He looked at me.
Eleanor, your claim on the estate is the strongest leverage. You could force a sale of assets to recover your share, but again, family fallout. I met Lydia's eyes across the table. She looked broken. I don't want to destroy her, I said. I want this to end without anyone losing their home or their dignity. Paul nodded. Then we start with negotiation. I'll contact Cascade tomorrow. In the meantime, gather every financial record you have. We need transparency now. That night, I stayed at the house. No one slept much. I lay on the old couch in the living room, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how revenge felt so satisfying when I was alone in the cabin. Now it felt small, pointless. The next morning, Paul called with news. Cascade is willing to meet, but they have a condition. We all gathered around the speakerphone. They'll accept $95,000 as full settlement, cash or certified funds within 10 days. In exchange, they release all claims against the bakery, the house, and Lydia personally. No collections, no credit reporting escalation. Lydia exhaled. We don't have $95,000. Paul's voice was calm. They know that. They also know you have an undivided interest in Evelyn Hayes's remaining estate assets, approximately $220,000 in liquid investments still held in trust. If you liquidate half of that, you can cover it. Dad frowned. That's Grandma's money for both girls. Exactly, which is why Eleanor would need to agree to accelerate distribution and waive her objection to using her share towards settlement. All eyes turned to me. I felt the weight of it. My future security, my anger, my family. I looked at Lydia across the table. She was broken silently, not even trying to hide it. Tom reached over and took her hand for the first time since he walked in yesterday. I took a breath. Tell them yes, I said. Use my share, settle the debt, save the bakery if you can. But Lydia, this is the end of the line. No more chances. You get help, you pay back what you can over time, and you never touch a deck of cards again. Lydia nodded through tears. I swear. Mom hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. Dad just looked at me with quiet gratitude. We had a path forward. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't cheap, but it was ours. 10 days later, the check was delivered. The lien was released. The bakery stayed open, barely. Lydia started counseling the following week. Tom moved into the spare room at our parents' house for a while, giving them both space to heal. And me, I went back to Seattle, but I came home more often, not out of obligation, out of choice. Because sometimes revenge isn't about winning, it's about choosing not to lose everything that matters. But just when I thought the story was over, a letter arrived at my apartment 3 months later, postmarked from Portland, no return address. Inside was a single photograph. It showed Lydia at a casino table, taken recently, and on the back, in handwriting I didn't recognize, 3 words. She never stopped.
Have you ever discovered that the person you thought you'd saved was still choosing the very path that nearly destroyed them all? If this final part hits hard, please leave a comment. Which country are you listening from? And have you ever given someone a second chance only to watch them make the same mistake again? Your honesty keeps these stories alive. Thank you. The photograph lay on my kitchen counter in Seattle like a live wire. Lydia at a casino table, blackjack, chips stacked high, that familiar, focused look she used to get when she was on a roll. The timestamp in the corner showed it was taken just 6 weeks ago, after the settlement, after the promises, after I gave up my share of Grandma's money to keep her world from collapsing. I turned the photo over again. She never stopped. No signature, no explanation, just those 3 words in neat block letters. My first instinct was to drive straight to Willow Creek and confront her, but something held me back. If this was real, if she had gone back, then showing up angry would only make her defensive. I needed proof. I needed to understand how deep the lie went. I called Paul Grayson, our family lawyer, the next morning. "Eleanor," he answered on the second ring, "everything okay?" I received something strange, a photo of Lydia at a casino, recent, anonymous sender. Silence on his end. Then, "Send it to me, I'll run it through some channels." In the meantime, don't confront her yet. If she's relapsed, we need to document it carefully, especially if any remaining estate funds are still in play. I scanned and emailed the photo. Then I sat at my desk staring at my laptop, heart pounding. Part of me wanted to believe it was a fake, a cruel prank from one of the collectors, or maybe someone in town who still resented Lydia for almost losing the bakery. But deep down, I knew better. 3 days later, Paul called back. The photo is authentic. Metadata places it at the Chinook Winds Casino in Lincoln City, Oregon. Timestamp matches, facial recognition software, yes, I have access to basic tools for this, confirms it's her. I closed my eyes. Has she been in contact with you about the remaining trust funds? Twice, he said quietly. She asked about accelerating the final distribution of the estate, said she needed capital to expand the wholesale side of the bakery. I told her it would require your approval since you waived objection only for the settlement. And I never heard from her. No, she didn't mention it to you? Not a word. Paul sighed. I'm sorry, Eleanor. I can freeze the remaining assets pending review, but if she's gambling again, the court may appoint a conservator for her share or for the whole estate if our parents are deemed vulnerable. I'll handle it, but first I need to see her face when I ask. I booked the next flight to Portland. This time, I didn't hide. I drove straight to the bakery in the middle of the afternoon. The bell jingled as I walked in. Mrs. Ellis looked up from the counter, surprise flickering across her face. Eleanor, didn't expect you back so soon. Is Lydia here? In the back. She's been quiet lately. I pushed through the swinging door without waiting. Lydia was at the stainless steel work table, rolling dough, sleeves pushed up. She froze when she saw me. Ellie, she said, wiping flour from her hands. You didn't call. I didn't think I needed to. I pulled the photograph from my bag and laid it on the table between us. Her eyes flicked to it. Color drained from her face. Where did you get that? She whispered. Someone sent it to me with a note. She never stopped. Care to explain? She stared at the photo like it belonged to someone else. Then she looked up at me, eyes filling. It was one time, just once, after the settlement. I was so stressed. The bakery was barely breaking even. Tom and I were fighting every night. I thought if I could win back just a little, I could breathe. One time, I repeated. The photo is from 6 weeks ago, and Paul says you've asked for the remaining trust money twice since then, without telling me. She looked away. I was going to tell you, I swear. I just needed to show everyone I could turn things around on my own. You promised, I said, voice low but steady. You promised no more cards, no more lies. I gave up over $90,000 of my inheritance, my future security, to save you, and you went right back. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I hate myself for it, I do, but it's like it's the only thing that quiets the noise in my head. When I'm at the table, everything else disappears. That's addiction, not a solution. She nodded slowly. I know. I leaned against the counter, suddenly exhausted. I could walk away right now, let the court handle it, freeze everything, force you into treatment, but I'm not going to. She looked up, startled. I'm going to give you one last choice. You check yourself into an inpatient gambling recovery program, 30 days minimum. You transfer control of your finances to a professional fiduciary until the counselor and Paul agree you're stable. You tell Tom the full truth again and let him decide if he stays. And you never, ever ask me for another dime without going through Paul first. She swallowed hard. And if I say no? Then I file the paperwork tomorrow. The trust gets locked. The bakery may have to close to satisfy any remaining claims. Your parents will be protected, but you'll lose everything you fought so hard to keep. Silence stretched between us. Finally, she spoke, voice small. I'll do it. The program, the fiduciary, all of it. I studied her face, searching for the lie. I didn't see one this time, just bone-deep tiredness. I'll believe it when I see the intake papers, I said. I'm staying in town until you're checked in, and I'm telling Mom, Dad, and Tom everything. She nodded, wiping her face with the back of her hand. Okay. The next week was hard.
Lydia called the treatment center herself, Willow Grove Recovery Center outside Bend. They had a bed available in 10 days. She packed a small bag. Tom drove her there. I followed in my rental car. When we arrived, she turned to me in the parking lot. "Thank you," she said, "for not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to do so." I hugged her, brief but tight. "This is your last chance, Lyd. Don't waste it." She walked through the doors without looking back. Tom and I stood there a long moment. "You think she'll make it?" he asked quietly. "I think she wants it more than she wants the cards, and right now I'm not sure she does, but we've done everything we can." He nodded. "I'm staying with your folks for a while. After that, I don't know. You don't have to decide today." We drove back in silence. Months passed. I returned to Seattle, threw myself to work, tried not to check my phone every hour for updates. Lydia finished the 30 days, then extended to 60, then 90. She called once a week, short conversations, no excuses, just progress reports. Tom filed for separation, but didn't push for divorce yet. He said he needed time. The bakery survived, smaller now, no wholesale, just local customers and pies on weekends. Mom and Dad helped when they could. The remaining trust money stayed locked until the fiduciary cleared her. When it finally released, Lydia used her portion to pay down the last of the old suppliers and start a small savings account. Nothing flashy, nothing risky. One afternoon, 6 months after she checked in, my phone rang. It was Lydia. "I'm 123 days clean, no cards, no slots, no excuses." "I'm proud of you," I smiled despite myself. "I know I can't undo what I did, but I'm trying to be someone you don't have to protect anymore, someone you can just be sisters with." I let the words settle. "I'd like that," I said. We talked for almost an hour about nothing and everything. No money, no debt, just two sisters catching up. When we hung up, I sat on my balcony overlooking the Sound and felt something loosen in my chest. Betrayal leaves scars. Forgiveness doesn't erase them. But sometimes, if both people keep showing up, those scars can become something else. Not perfect, not painless, just proof that even the deepest shadows can't extinguish every light. And for the first time in a long time, I believed we might both make it through.